Okay, welcome back guys and girls. If you haven't browsed on the Paddock's website for a while, you'll notice they've actually updated their garage equipment. There's quite a bit there, so we thought I'd have a browse and select something. What we found was PSB10, which is a 10-gallon portable sandblaster. Well, this is exactly what we need at the moment for the amount of rusty stuff we have on our vehicle. I'm sure you know what sandblasting is. It's using sand under air pressure to blast off rust and corrosion. There is a limit to how much corrosion you can actually sandblast, practically, and you might consider having a professional sandblaster do some areas, but smaller areas, it's fine. It will strip off corrosion and paintwork where you need to do repairs on your vehicle. Sandblasting won't make a component like new, but it will remove all the corrosion off the surfaces so it can be painted without having the rust grow back through underneath the paintwork. So here it is in the flesh, the 10-gallon sandblaster. Paddock sometimes also do a 20-gallon sandblaster when it's in stock. Okay, for a guided tour, first of all we have a pressure relief valve which is set at 125 psi for safety purposes, and yes, it does work. We run pressure through it which was higher than 125, and it certainly did the job okay, which is vitally important. After the pressure valve, here we have the cap, which is very well made, and it has to be to withstand the pressure. At the top here you pour in your sand or the beads that you're going to use for sandblasting. We're using a kiln dried silica here, and once it's been filled it has to be locked down quite tightly. That's why it has this bar on the cap there. Right, so we have a 3/8 of an inch taps all the way over it. We also have an air dry filter which has a water drain on it to keep the water out of the air. And we also have a shut-off for the air pressure to the tank at the top. And we also have a shut-off tap at the bottom as well for the air-sand mixture. These parts can be sourced locally, causing less problem if you have breakages. Okay, you're not supplied with an air fitting on the end, all you have is a union here. But they do give you some tape, which is your PTFE tape, to stop any leaks. And the reason they don't give you a fitting here is because there's so many choices of air coupling. This one here is a Pcl coupling, which basically all my tools are on this one, so it's logical to keep it that way. The air supply that we're using for this test is 130 psi constant pressure, and you can see by this it will actually go past 125, but this will only allow 125. Although saying that, this sort of pressure is too much. 90 psi is fantastic pressure for this. We've had to put a pressure regulator in line to lower the pressure to get this to operate. Okay, here's a document that I've just scanned that came with the sandblaster, and this is saying, if you read it correctly, that depending on the hose diameter, hose length and nozzle diameter, it depends very much on the horsepower of the compressor that you actually need. And yes, you probably need a PhD in compressor pneumatics to work all this out. However, you do have a selection of nozzles that you can work with, and it would be recommended to have a medium-sized domestic compressor. This is the working end of the nozzle and the tap to shut it off when you don't need the pressure and sand there, but you can see how this operates with a camera that's strapped onto the end of it. This sandblaster works very well. At very minimum, you need overalls, which are quite thick material, a pair of leather gauntlets, and you get a mask with the kit. And here's a befitting picture of me working with it. When you're sandblasting, sand is very abrasive, so you need thick leather gauntlets, like the stuff you use for welding here. And if you look at the top left hand corner, this is the minimum you need to protect yourself. Sand is abrasive, but it also can take your breath away while you're working with it. I know, as we say, one life, live it, but make sure that you live it well with all the pieces of your body intact. Alright, so we're using kiln dried sand here, which is just grabbed from a local dealer's, Motor Factors, 25 kilograms. You can use other materials. With aluminium, okay, you can see here how aluminium is before it's sandblasted and then afterwards. It doesn't like oily, greasy surfaces, as you can see here, but it leaves a dull finish. Also, sandblasting is very wasteful. You can see how much sand is wasted here in almost about 5 minutes. Okay, so you really need to build yourself a containment area where you can collect and then refilter the sand and put it back into the container and reuse it. The other option, if you can afford it, is SBC220, which is a steel blast cabinet, which will contain the sand. You can collect at the bottom and then reuse it. Okay, so emptying it, I'm going to have to show you this if you buy one of these, is you let and release all the air out of the tank this way, so you're getting air back through the air feed first of all. This way you drain the tank completely before you take the lid off. Once the gauge has gone down to 0, you can then evacuate the tank, but there will still be a little bit of pressure left in it, so be careful of this. Anyway, in summary, the Sandblaster is a fantastic piece of kit that every Land Rover owner needs if they have a compressor that can cope with taking this sort of equipment. You need a medium-sized compressor and not a little Audi special. I've got to say that this is one way of cleaning rust off equipment very, very quickly. This is actually quite labour intensive to remove rust, whereas a sandblaster will do it very, very proficiently. However, you've got to remember the cost of this could be prohibitive unless you have a compressor already in your workshop. Okay, so we're going to give the thumbs up on this one. Again, for Paddock's coming up trumps with decent tools.